Hi everybody. So in this video, I want to go over the basics of the different kinds of data that can be in your Java programs. So when you go to add data into a program that your program needs to remember in order to display to the user, or maybe it's something that the user types in, so then you need to save. In Java, you have to declare what the data type is. So here are the different kinds of data types, and these are just the basic ones. There are more than this. But one of the data types that's used most often is the int data type. So that basically refers to an integer. It's not exactly an integer. It's used for counting things. So if you are keeping track of how many points in a video game, then int would be a good choice for that. So it's whole numbers only. There's no ability to have any decimals in here. And it can be positive or negative. But there is a minimum and a maximum. It's a very, very large number. So ints are perfectly capable of accepting most of the numbers that you're going to have in your programs. But there is a limit eventually. But ints are pretty good for that kind of stuff. Now, if you need a decimal of some kind, then the data type is double, is pretty commonly used. There's another one called float that refers to a floating point number, and then double just refers to a double floating point number. So it just can carry some more precision than a regular float. So typically in our programs, we just use doubles because we don't really have to worry about saving memory and stuff very often. So this works just fine. So the benefit of having a double data type is that you can have decimals in it. Another really commonly used data type is string. So anything that's text, such as a name or a word or a sentence or paragraphs or anything like that, any kind of text that's a bunch of characters put together, then that is a string data type. Even if it's one single character, you could have it as a string. There's also another data type called a char for a single character, but that's a little bit different. One thing to notice here is that it actually does have a capital S because these are derived from objects and they're not primitive types like int and double and boolean. Those are primitive types. They're really, really basic kind of variables. Strings have a little bit more to them that we'll see in another chapter. So that brings me to the next one, boolean. So that's if you want to convey the information of whether something is simply true or false, if it's yes or no, on or off. And this is essentially what gets translated into those 1 or 0 kind of data that computers work with. These get used pretty often as well. So if you want to say that a video game character is alive, then you could have an is alive boolean, and then it'd either be true or false. That way, if you're playing Space Invaders and an alien gets destroyed, then you can just change that boolean from true to false to convey that information. So these are pretty often used. And the other data type is a little bit more abstract, but it's just any kind of an object. So you could think of maybe having a person. So you can declare a variable as being a person, maybe it's a dog, maybe it's a car, it's whatever you've kind of come up with in your program. You actually write these definitions. But the idea with these objects is that it combines multiple attributes together. So you can have a person that has an int as their age, and it has their height and weight both as doubles, and has their name as a string. You can combine all these things together into one object. And they also can have methods too. So a person can eat, can run, can sleep, things like that is what you would define there. So that is the basics of some essential data types in Java.